Before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to bring in some statistics. Now, in my experience, I'm the kind of person when I hear statistics being rattled off, I kind of gloss over what I'm hearing mentally. So I'm going to take the statistics of sexual offenses and rape and try to equate the number to a more tangible concept. In 2018 to 2019, 52,420 cases of sexual offenses were reported, and 41,583 cases of rape. Now, those are pretty big numbers, but they are still just numbers. So let's put them into some context. Going on the South African census taken in 2011, the population of the town of Meyerton in Gauteng was 55,283, and the population of the town of Heidelberg was 35,563. So if you are in Gauteng and you go visit either of those towns, every single person you see represents one rape or sexual assault survivor. However, in Gauteng in 2017, on average, only 1 in 23 women who reported sexual abuse also report that to the police. So the numbers that have been reported could be 23 times smaller than what they actually are. So that means rape could be as high as 956,409, while sexual offenses could be standing at 1,205,660, which was pretty much the entire population of Soweto in 2011. I hope this helps makes a bit more sense of the magnitude of the problem, and that is why it is important to listen, and also why it's important to be speaking up. We're sitting with a problem. My next speaker is a poet and a human rights activist based in Pretoria. She currently works at Out LGBTI Wellbeing as the Hate Crimes Manager for the Love Not Hate program. She's responsible for assisting hate crime victims with any challenges they may experience, and she oversees the overall project. She is also involved in advocating for LGBTI rights in relation to policy change, accessibility to services, and through media visibility. Please welcome into the studio, Roché Kester. Roché, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Grant. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So before I bring everyone in, how are you feeling?
I think I'm a bit disheartened. You know, there's always these advertising campaigns and awareness campaigns surrounding Women's Day, but as African women, there's really little to celebrate at this time. Our president has called gender-based violence a pandemic, and yet not treated in that way at all. There's no urgency around these issues. People that have been speaking for about 2 years in relation to drawing up policies and things that would be preventative and reactive in these measures. We've still been waiting for that implementation. And so I'm not an African for today, but hopefully from what I'll be able to share, it will be able to change some hearts and minds and bring awareness to what's actually happening to South African women and the lived realities we have to face every day.
Well, I hope so, definitely too. So before we get rolling, let me just bring the men into the studio that are going to be listening to you and holding the space for you. So first, I'd like to introduce Sam Sleeman. Hello, Sam. Glad to have you here. And then I'd like to introduce Dale Ray. Hello, Dale. And then lastly, I'd like to introduce Pumi and Kai.
Hey, how's it?
Thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure.
Cool. So glad. Before I give over to you, Roché, Ben, I just want to ask you with a thumbs up. Are you ready? You good? Now that our speaker has met our listeners, Roché, I give the floor over to you. We're listening.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I think in my lifetime I've experienced from men on numerous times. In 2010, in Cape Town, I was in a taxi, and these people drove with me after they had dropped off the last passengers, and they drove to an alley. They physically assaulted me. They hit me in the face. They bit me on the hand, took all my possessions and left me bloody in an alley in Salt River. Luckily, I had remembered the number plate of the taxi, and subsequently the people went to jail, but only for 2 years. Unfortunately, my PTSD lasted much longer than that, and so subsequently I had to drop out of university. I was so traumatized that I couldn't turn after, and it really took a large chunk of my life. I was also a victim of a sexual violation. So my then partner, or he had removed the condom during sexual intercourse. So in South Africa, the term stealthing is not necessarily known to a lot of people, but it is the removal of the condom without consent. And because of that, I had a lot of reproductive health problems in relation to that. And in the UK, stealthing is criminalized as rape. In South Africa, there's no legislation for it at all. So even if I had wanted to report it, what would I have said? Because it's also believed that your partners are not people that can sexually violate you, right? About 2 weeks ago, where I currently live in Pretoria, I'd been coming back from the shop and I was attacked by two men. They threw me to the floor. One stole my phone. One took the magnet out of my keychain for the entrance to my apartment and just left me there. I ran after them until one threatened me with a brick, and that's when I decided that it would probably be better to save myself than try to get back the possessions. I was unable to walk for about a week after this incident. This was, I'm still a bit fragile in the ankle, and so, every time I think about it, I mean, given that I had already suffered so much trauma, the initial reaction from my family is that, are you okay? And considering they're in Cape Town and I'm in Pretoria, there's also not much of a support system here. And so knowing that I had previously been a victim/survivor of these horrific kind of violences, there was just immense concern. And a part of me almost felt like I was desensitized by the violence in this country. That trauma didn't hit that hard because I was so used to experiencing this in a country like South Africa. And so now when I walk, it's still painful and it's a reminder that this had happened to me 2 weeks ago. So every time I step, I get immensely angry knowing that this had happened. And so I just kind of want to outline to not just the men who I'm speaking to here, but in general, that, I hope that you never know the fear of thinking that you may be murdered or raped every time that you leave your house. I hope that when you walk down the street, that you will know you will never understand the pain of being objectified by being whistled at, being catcalled or beckoned in public like you are a dog. I hope that when you don't smile, you are told that you should smile more because it would make you prettier. I hope that you don't get called a bitch every time that you assert yourself, whether it be at the workplace, whether it be with your partner, whether it be in any circumstance. I hope that when you voice an annoyance or a discontention or an uncomfortability, that your measure of emotionality is not blamed or equated to your menstrual cycle. I hope that you never know what it feels like to look at your own body as a site of violence. I hope that the decisions that are made about your body are your own and they are not made by people without your consent or without your input, and that you always have autonomy over your body. I hope that you do not get shamed for your attire and that you get called derogatory names in relation to your gender. I hope that you never know the humiliation of constantly being objectified. I hope that you are not shamed for the number of consensual sexual partners that you may have. I hope that if you are ever violated, that they believe you, that if your perpetrators go to court, that they don't get bail. If they are sentenced, that it is not a slap on the wrist. I wish that we could count on men as allies and that it was a necessity for them and that it wasn't just something out of convenience. I wish that you would hold your male counterparts accountable and that you would call out fucky behavior and language of your friends and the people in your immediate circle when you see it. I hope that you teach boys and also men that masculinity need not always be rooted in violence. There is the possibility of a compassionate masculinity, that there is a measure of understanding that kindness is a virtue and that crying is okay. I hope that men and the greater public would make a concerted effort in understanding what consent means. And I wish that when you do have emotional responses, that violence is not the way
We seem to have some connection issues.
Am I still here, Grant?
We've got you back, yeah.
Okay. I've just got a little bit more to say. Yeah, I was trying to say that I hope that we can teach our boys and men that masculinity need not be rooted in violence, and that there is a form of compassionate masculinity, and that kindness is a virtue, and that it is okay to cry, and that our society would make an effort to actually understand what consent means, and that when you try to remedy a situation in emotionality, that it is not using your fist is not your first reaction. Being aggressive is not your first reaction to remedy something. I also wish that men didn't have to validate their strength through dominance, and that strength could mean something different for them as well. And that I hope that there's no coercion of men, coercion of sex by men through women. I really wish that people would hold the safety of South African women as a priority. That we all make a concerted effort to ensure that there is a measure of safety. Because waking up in this country is terrible because you're consistently petrified and scared of what might happen to you. And what has happened to me is also a marker of okay, it seems like my connection is going in and out. Am I on the screen? Okay, I'm still here. Okay, so I'd like to finish off with a poem I wrote, and it was in relation specifically to the incident that I had experienced when the person that I was with had sexually violated me. So this is the poem. It's called Whisper in the Wind. To shout the name would mean nothing. It fills my mouth with dust. My voice is now a desert chord, an inhalation of pain. I would still be here, memory jarred, soul tainted, body violated, barely afloat in trauma, having to explain, validate the time, the date, the place, the state of mind, forced to reimagine over and over again, like it were happening now, like a burial resurrected from my past, when I would rather forget. To say that your favorites are them too is a blip in the ocean, a whisper in the wind, a dull headache behind the eyes, an outing of yourself first, walking scarlet-lettered, a shame now coined brave, then reduced to a hashtag, tiny in the masses when you say me too, but it did happen, and the words cannot escape. It hurts the throat, violates the mouth, desecrates everything. You maimed them free. You know celebrity, no national news, just statistic. Their allies would avoid your name like the plague, like it never happened, like you made it up. Like the truth is only held in your ribcage, like your lungs still inflate the same. They do not. So you try to forget. You just try every day, but nobody will let you. Parading your pain like each story is the same. They make you a whisper in the wind. So you won't. You just don't. Breathe too loud. You make no sound, hoping that it will expel itself somehow, someday. Thank you.
Thanks, Roché. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and honestly, just thank you. Thank you, that needed to be heard. So now, my question to the male listeners out there: are you angry yet? Are you disturbed? Are you perhaps uncomfortable? If you are, it is important to ask yourself why. And once you've done serious soul searching, you need to ask yourself what you can do about it. We've all been on this earth long enough to know that the universe favors action. Our bodies know this because if you were made uncomfortable today and you don't do something to change it, those feelings are going to get tucked away and they're going to fester. And they could possibly grow and change into indignation, fear, jealousy, or anger, emotions that men are notoriously guilty of not being able to control. In fact, it has become so cliche for men to give in to their impulses created by these emotions that society, and more importantly, other men, excuse them for it. Well, I can tell you categorically that this man does not. It's so easy because of our physical dominance to get our way. Because it seems no one else wants to admit it. Even the most pipsqueak of healthy men can physically overpower more than half of women. So what kind of man does that make you? What kind of man beats someone physically or intimidates them emotionally with the threat of physical violence when it is so obvious that they're vastly unmatched physically? And you know what? No man at all. It's no man at all. That is a child in a man's body, a little hurt boy that, instead of being brave enough to deal with whatever trauma was thrust upon them, uses their physical dominance to control their reality. Abuse stems from abuse. The only person who can stop the cycle of abuse is you. Stop walking around with psychological wounds inflicted on you by your father, your mother, or some other person who betrayed your trust or stole your innocence. Because guess who goes through the exact same problems you do and has no other alternative than to face and process those emotions because they can't get their way physically. And just in case you can't guess the answer by now, it's women. We live in a day and age where there are methods available to you that work in processing that damage. Trust me. Trust me. You can improve. You can change. Wouldn't it be great to be in total control of yourself? Wouldn't it be great that when somebody makes you feel incredibly embarrassed, like when your dad did, when that day, when him and all his friends laughed at you, you could just shrug it off instead of lashing out? Wouldn't it be great that when a woman that you are attracted to turns you down, that you could be able to walk away knowing that you are still worthy of love, instead of trying to force a connection emotionally by being the good boy because good boys get rewards, or physically by harassing, intimidating, assaulting, or raping because you feel small and emasculated? The human race is entering a new era, and I think we all know it, but we're just too afraid to admit it. We are realizing that we have much more control of ourselves than we've actually realized. We can step up. We can improve. Women are not naggers, trophies, bitches, or crazy. We make them that. And sometimes we're plainly just too stupid to realize that because of our physical dominance, it's so obvious that we become blind to how intimidating we can be. Physical dominance as a concept is so reinforced in the male gender that even if a woman could overpower a man, she would never know or try. Because men's physical strength has reached the point of boogeyman status in the human consciousness. Men, guys, dudes, homies, bros, and even my fellow gay men, bears, jocks, queens, twinks, and all the little squirrel friends. We can change, we can support, and most importantly, we can defend. To those who have survived gender-based violence in any way, please know that there are avenues available to you to help you find the help that you need. So there's the Gender-Based Violence Command Center, 0800 428 428. There's Power, People Opposed to Women Abuse, 011 642 4345. And then there's Out, Servicing the LGBTI Community, 012 430 3272 or 066 190 5812. And then lastly, I would never have thought or had the courage to do something like this without the support of the Mankind Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing men for the better, one man at a time. If you want to make a donation, you can scan the QR code in the bottom right corner of the screen, or you can go to mankindproject.co.za to either make a donation or find out more. If, however, you don't feel it fitting to donate to a men's organization, which is totally understandable, you're also welcome to navigate to the sister organization, www.womenwithin.org, or the South African version, www.wfa.org.za, and make a donation there. Or actually, to any organization you choose to support, to change our country and to change our society for the better. Thank you, everybody. Be the change you want to see in the world. I'm Grant Towers, and this was We're Listening.